Let's discuss the ongoing stalemate with former Deputy Chief of Staff for Senator Mitch McConnell. He is Rohit Kumar. He's also co-leader of PwC's Washington National Tax Office. Also with us, former Deputy Director of the National Economic Council under President Biden, Seth Harris. He, a senior fellow at the Burns Center for Social Change. All right, gentlemen, we had you a couple weeks ago. We have you here today. We're a little bit closer, notably, to that deadline, a few days away. First to you, Seth Harris, are they going to make a deal in time?
Well, I hope so, but there are some things that we don't know. We're hearing positive indications from the negotiators, but, you know, the big fish in the Republican Party, Donald Trump, hasn't seen the deal, hasn't weighed in. So far, he's been sort of campaigning for default, telling Kevin McCarthy to stick to his guns, get everything but the kitchen sink. The House Freedom Caucus is signaling unmistakably that any deal that is not the bill that they passed in the House, they're not going to vote for. So their speaker is going to need Democratic votes. The more conservative he goes, the harder that's going to be.
Sounds like you're not convinced. And to that point, these 35 House Republicans that Boris mentioned, they're now demanding more border security go into any agreement. They want to block the FBI headquarters for some reason tied to this deal. And they're also demanding that the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, prove her work in saying that we are close to that precipice here. Where is your confidence right now that they make a deal before we hit that precipice?
I am still confident that we're going to get an agreement by June 1, if June 1 is the exit. It might not be June 1. It might be June 2nd, June 3rd, June 4th. The Secretary, as I've said a couple times now, I do think having an exit, a hard date, is helpful. This wiggle room allows this sort of like second guessing, show me your math, you know, that sort of thing. But look, the fact that you've got 35 House Republicans, the House Freedom Caucus types, you know, writing a letter basically saying we're not planning on voting for this thing is actually kind of a good sign, right? Because they were never going to be a part of the coalition of the willing for a bill that was going to get signed into law through a Democratic Senate, through President Biden's signature. So the fracturing at the extremes is actually a sign that the deal is coming together.
In other words, those extremes can stay in their extremes and you find some folks in the middle to vote for the deal to get across the line?
There's plenty of folks in the middle available to get you 218 in the House.
There's a difference here, it strikes me, Seth Harris, that publicly there are folks in the Republican Party, Trump said it at the CNN town hall, let's go, let's bust this, let's go over the precipice. And you have some Republicans saying, not so quietly, hey, we don't mind. And by the way, it'd be the Democratic president's fault if we go over the edge and the economy is sunk and so on. That's a different dynamic. I mean, is that enough of a dynamic to stand in the way here and push the economy over the edge?
It's an extremely dangerous and extreme argument. You know, essentially, it's a political argument from Donald Trump. If the economy crashes under Joe Biden, that increases the likelihood that I'm going to win the election in 2024. But the pain that it's going to inflict on our country, the millions of jobs lost, the freezing of the housing market, increased spending because of interest rates are going to go way up. We're going to see our economy slip into a recession and maybe worse, because let me say, we've never seen this before. This would be entirely unprecedented. So it's a gigantic risk, and it shows that some folks, some of the extremists in the party, are more interested in politics than they are in making sure the American people's lives come out well.
Okay, so if it's true that those extremists can stay in their corner and then the folks relatively in the middle, to the extent we have that today, can come to a deal, how does that come about? How do McCarthy and Biden, as leaders of the Democrats and Republicans here, come to the deal? What does that deal look like in your view? Yeah,
so I mean, look, the key to any deal, every deal that I participated in, was some elements of the transaction that both sides can spin in a way that serves their political interests. So, for example, you know, if there are spending caps that last, 5, 6, 7, 8, even 10 years, right? Speaker McCarthy can say, look, the official score table shows trillions of dollars of saving because we're limiting discretionary spending. The White House could just as credibly say, yeah, don't worry about the spending caps beyond the first 2 years because the next Congress will kick in at year 3. They will have their own theory of the case. And so you need not worry about what the year 3, 4, 5, 6 spending caps are. Both statements true, right? And the deals are done. And I think this will be an element of the deal. The deals are done with elements that both sides can accurately depict in a way that serves their political interests. And that's where I think that's how it's going to come together.
Do you think, Shane, the president can find a way that he can call victory here?
On some of the issues, but some of the issues are going to be much, much more difficult. work requirements in some of the safety net programs are going to be very difficult for a lot of Democrats to swallow. Whether or not Democrats can accept the caps that are being proposed by the Republicans depends how deep the cuts are, or if they are just straightforward freezes, which might be a little easier, budget freezes for the Democrats to accept. Some of the things like permitting reform and clawing back some of the COVID money, there are going to be some people upset about that, but I don't see those as deal breakers. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to whether or not both sides are going to take a little bit of pain in order to get to a deal. But the one thing that should never be negotiable is whether we are going to raise the debt limit, because doing anything else would be catastrophic for the economy.
Listen, and by the way, not just for the bankers, right, or the Federal Reserve, for folks like you and me, people watching right now, it would have real consequences. Shane Harris, Rohit Kumar, I hope you're right about a deal. That'd be nice. Make the weekend easier. Brianna, over to you.